Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar on 10 tips for being an international student in the US. My name is Angel and I am one of the mentors at the International Student Mentorship Program. Before we begin, I would love to share with you briefly my own background. I came to America when I was 15 and I graduated from UC San Diego with a Bachelor of Science in Pharmacological Chemistry. In order to accumulate some work experiences and figure out what I really wanted to do, I worked at a research lab on UCSD campus for 3 years after graduation. However, during my senior year in college, I took some computer science classes during my free period, and that was when I began to be very interested in software engineering. And that's why I am currently a master's student at UC Irvine studying software engineering. Coming from the background as an international student, I have learned a lot over the years, and I am excited to share with you a few of the many tips that come from my own experiences, as well as from my international friends' experiences. I hope you will find this information helpful as you venture into this brand new journey. Now let's get started. My first tip to you is, in America, academics is not everything. In Asia, grades tend to be something that could dominate the trajectory of your life. But in America, grades are not everything. In order to be successful here, it's very important to be a well-rounded person. In fact, there are a lot of skills you can't learn by sitting through classes, such as interpersonal skills, which people often learn through social interactions, such as work or social events. Now, why are these skills important? Because, for example, a lot of the interview process involves behavioral questions. Your answers to these questions show the interviewers how you work with people, and in many cases, that will determine if you might get the job or not. Aside from jobs, your GPA is actually only a small portion of consideration when you apply for internships, volunteer positions, and even school applications, because it doesn't give a full picture of who you are compared to what your extracurricular activities and work experiences can show about you. For this reason, we recommend that you don't overload yourself with classes in the first few months by either taking a lot of classes or taking very difficult classes. But we recommend you to take easier classes so you have more time to familiarize yourself with this new environment. For high schoolers, you don't have many choices to select classes, so we advise you not to be too harsh on yourself about grades. The first few months are actually is when people are pretty open to new friendships. So take advantage of this window of opportunity. Try to attend more group events and build some meaningful relationships with people who can stick with you even during difficult times. My second tip to you is this. If the idea is not originated from you, make sure to cite references. This means it is not okay to take content directly from online articles, research papers, movies, or any other sources. In some other countries, it's often okay to casually introduce someone saying into your essays without having to cite the sources. But that's not okay in America, even if you paraphrase the quote. And paraphrase means to rewrite the quote in your own words. This is called plagiarism. It's considered as serious as you have been caught cheating, which can result in failing a class, suspension, or even dismissal from the school. You will also remain on your record, which would impact your college or grad school application. A general rule of thumb, if you did not come up with the idea yourself, you will need to cite it. The third tip I want to share with you is about how you study. The American education system emphasizes applying knowledge and forming opinions and thoughts rather than purely memorizing material. In some countries, memorization is the main way to study for exams. While memorization does play a big role in studying, the American education system also focuses a lot on the application of knowledge. You need to really understand the concepts and be able to use these knowledge to form your own opinions and thoughts over things. My friend Jay was a very good student. For her first biology quiz, she memorized all the lecture notes and thought she knew everything like the back of her hand. But shockingly, she only got a 20% as her grade. because a lot of the questions are scenarios that require logic. For example, instead of memorizing the step-by-step pathway, the question asks what would happen if this particular part of the pathway is disrupted. This is knowledge and application. Because of this, Jay had to restructure her way of studying. Instead of memorizing, she learned to apply the knowledge by teaching the concepts to her classmates and designing test questions herself. Sometimes you might not know what to expect when it comes to a new professor. Just a quick tip to you. You can always ask the professors for practice questions. Those are often very helpful for studying exams. Tip number 4, don't be shy about your English. Remember, English is your second language, and it is okay to make mistakes because this is just how we learn about anything. Entering into a new environment with people who speak different language is definitely intimidating. A lot of us, when we just came here, our natural response was try to avoid talking as much as possible or even avoid people. But it was not until we talked to people and practiced English that we get better. I think you probably noticed those who can master the language the fastest in your language learning classes are often those who are bold enough to talk and are not afraid of making mistakes. The saying is not wrong. Practice makes perfect. I have made many mistakes over the years. To encourage you, I will share with you one of my stories. There was one time a speaker came to our school and gave a very inspiring speech over his own life experiences. After that, I was just chatting with my friends, and I was expressing to them how I was amazed by this speaker, that somehow he could have so many insights even by watching chick flicks. Now, chick flicks is a word used to describe those romantic movies. I heard this word during the speech, and I wanted to use this word, but instead of saying chick flicks, I said Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is the name of a famous burger restaurant in California. You can probably imagine that my friends all bursted into laughter after I said that word. So I just want to let you know, making mistakes it's not always embarrassing. It can sometimes bring joy to other people too. With that being said, I understand that to be bold in speaking English is easier said than done. So our advice to you is create or find a safe environment to practice where you will not be ashamed of making mistakes, and find people who will give you feedback and help you. For this reason, during our mentorship program, our mentors will give you plenty of opportunities to talk. We want to provide a safe environment and help you practice English. Moving on to tip number 5, embrace your cultural identity as an international student because you have strengths you can share. What often causes a lot of students to avoid Americans and stick with people who share similar cultures is a sense of shame and insecurity over their differences compared to the Americans around them. This was exactly how I felt when I just came to America. I kept thinking about the fact that I came from a different background. I didn't really know a lot of things they were talking about, like movies or celebrities, and I always felt like I was such an awkward presence or an outsider. I was often overwhelmed by the sense of self-pity and unwilling to move beyond this emotion because I felt scared and inferior to others. And to be honest, sometimes I would still feel this way. However, I think given that I am an international student, I should expect that there would be a lot of cultural differences and there would be things that seem foreign to me. Having been through this experience, I want to encourage you not to be caught up in thinking about what you can't do or what you don't know. The reality is that you have your own strength. You're not inferior to anyone. And in fact, being an international student is your unique strength. American culture values different diverse perspectives. You can actually help contribute to their education by presenting your different experience and knowledge from your home country. Additionally, you don't need to become exactly like American in order to fit in or to be successful in the future. So I want to encourage you to open yourself up to accept the differences and take the opportunity to move toward others and learn about them. Tip number 6, open up yourself to make friends with American students. They are more friendly than you think. What we often observe about a lot of students is that they always tend to hang out with their friends from their countries, even though they are in America, and their relationship with American people they know only remain at the level of classmates. We want to encourage you to make friends with Americans and to learn American culture while you are here. And while you have the opportunity, chat with them when you work on group projects, or invite them out for hang out over coffee or attend any group events to get to know more people. But I understand this is also difficult to do, especially when you're first starting. So a quick tip for you: try to just get to know one person. Find the most friendly person in your class and get to know him or her. You will be surprised where this may take you. Perhaps that person will introduce you to his or her friends. Besides meaningful relationships, you can also get a lot of useful information and insights through talking with them, because they're so much more familiar with how things operate in America. In general, these relationships can be very helpful as you adjust to the US. Tip number 7 is about cultural differences. Be careful not to ask American people sensitive topics, such as age and salary. This is very important because not being careful about it can lead to embarrassing situations. Unlike other cultures, American culture values individual privacy. Things like age, salary, and how many house properties someone owns might be things that are often talked about casually between friends back in your home country. But these topics are considered private in America and will make the Americans you talk to very uncomfortable. Unless you are super close friends, remember not to casually ask people about these things. If it is your close American friend, make sure to ask if they mind you asking them about these. Now I want to switch gears in talking about life skills. Tip number 8. Get your driver license early if you can, and don't wait until later. Your life in college will only get busier, with heavier academic load and more time for internships or projects. Getting a driver's license might help you find off-campus internships later. So get your license early, even if you don't need to drive right away, because that will lower your monthly cost of insurance the longer you have your license. Additionally, the majority of the US is very spread out. With the exception of certain cities such as New York City, most of the US do not have good public transportation. Personal cars tend to be the only way to get around. Our next tip may sound a little bit unfamiliar to you. It's something people often don't notice until they have been in the States for a while. Tip number 9, be confident when you express your thoughts. Use direct communication. Don't communicate in a roundabout way. You don't need to feel like it's rude to express what's on your mind or feel like people will be offended. Most of the time, people will respect your opinions even if you don't agree with them. However, I do want to clarify that this does not mean you can disrespect others. In America, being able to express your thoughts is highly valued, and being outspoken is often seen in a positive light rather than negative. In fact, a lot of companies often look for those who are independent, confident, and have their own opinions over different things. In terms of direct communication, I think a lot of Asian people tend not to realize about this because indirect communication is rooted in a lot of Asian cultures. However, this will be taken as passive-aggressive in America and can make the Americans you talk to feel uncomfortable. Let me give you an example that comes from my friend Jay's personal experience. When she was riding a car with her host sister in high school, she said, "It's so hot in here." The host sister got annoyed at her and said, "Why don't you just ask if you could turn on the AC or not?" This may be hard to get used to and requires you to be aware of your thoughts. It would be very helpful actually to have someone such as your friends or mentor to help you. Learning to be direct will help your relationships with American students a lot. Our final tip to you is this. When you're going through difficult things, learn to talk to parents, friends, and even your mentors. The first few weeks in America may be very hard because you're exposed to many new things. It might feel very embarrassing to talk to people about it. Sometimes you don't want to bother others, or sometimes you don't want others to worry about you. But keeping these things to yourself will actually end up making you feel even more helpless and frustrated. And then you can also have a lot of negative psychological effects on you. It will help you if you find some friends, family members, or mentors to talk to. Find people who are reliable and are willing to go through hard times with you. Now I want to share with you one of my own experiences during the beginning of my high school year because my English was really bad and I had a really hard time. And I often felt really helpless. However, I'm really thankful for my dorm mom, Mrs. Baker. She would invite me to her house, make some tea for me, and patiently listen to my broken English. I don't really remember what we talked about or what she said, but what I remembered is that because of her presence, I felt so comforted, and it was clear to me that I was not alone. And this is our heart behind ISMP. We want to let you know that we will always be here for you. We are just a group of people who are a little bit older, and we understand how hard it would be because we experienced all these things ourselves. If you can take away one thing from this webinar, we want you to remember that you're not alone. And this is the end of our webinar, and I really hope all these tips, information that I've shared will be really helpful for you as you transition into American culture.